Welcome to season 4 of A Mental Health Break. I'm your host and author of the book, Mr. Lanci Talks Mental Health, Vincent A. Lanci.
Hi, I'm Raessa, and I'm one half of the team of Where's My Lemonade, which is a book that we published this summer.
Hi, and I'm Jamie, and I'm the other half of Team Lemonade. Really excited to be here, so thank you so much for having us on.
When I was 21 years old, I was the victim of a hit-and-run accident while on foot. After coming out of a coma and suffering from a traumatic brain injury, or you may know of as a TBI, I soon realized it was time to put my mental health on a very high pedestal. This transformative experience has led me to create this podcast that is all things mental health. It has also led me to create my new book, Mr. Lanci Talks Mental Health. Head to my website after the episode ends to learn more. Would it add value to your life to hear mental health professionals and advocates share their authentic stories relating to mental health? If you answered yes, you came to the right place, and I want to start by congratulating you for making your mental health a priority. Today's guests are two mental health advocates that I connected with on Instagram. They are Jamie Brockhurst and Raessa Mumith, two 20-something friends who have come together with the single purpose of helping people remember that there is a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to their mental health. Over the last 2 years, they have pulled together 17 people from across the globe to each tell stories of positivity and managing mental health. They put all of this together in a book called Where's My Lemonade and published it during the lockdown, where they donate all profits to the Mental Health Foundation charity. This book has already been sold all over the world and helps many people feel like they are not alone in their struggles. We are going to learn all about this and so much more, including their personal journeys. So allow me to now introduce Jamie and Raessa. Girls, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Pleasure is mine. Would you mind please introducing yourself to our listeners before we dive in and get going? And also please do share your role related to mental health.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Raessa. As I said before, I'm half of the Where's My Lemonade team. So I'm a full-time pharmacist. I work in healthcare in the UK, so things have been a bit crazy over the pandemic. I suffered from depression and anxiety a few years ago, and that got me into self-development. And that's basically how I met Jamie. We both ended up attending a Tony Robbins event here in London. There were 15,000 people, so we didn't quite cross paths, but we did get both added to a WhatsApp group for all the London-based attendants. And yeah, we found out we lived like 10 minutes away from each other and we're the same age. And that's how we pretty much became really good friends.
Excellent.
And hey, I'm Jamie. So I'm also the other half of Where's My Lemonade team. I work in investments, so my actual day job has nothing to do with mental health at all. My passion for mental health came from my own struggles, because I felt that when I struggled with mental health, with depression, I felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. And I wish back then I knew what I knew now, that there most definitely is a light. And so a lot of my passion comes from wanting to tell people, my goodness, if only you knew there is a light at the end of the tunnel, keep going. So that's sort of what drew me into the mental health world.
Thank you both so much for the great introductions. And normally it would be time for the spotlight story, but for season 4 episodes, we will move that story towards the end of the episodes and get right into the main event. On each episode, my guests and I will go over this series of 6 questions to help others improve their mental health. You ready to go, girls?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So many would agree that the more common, or at least talked about, types of mental health disparities are mood disorders, anxiety disorders, or schizophrenia disorders. Which areas did you come across the most? Raessa, you go first.
I think for me, generally working in healthcare, I dealt with a lot of people with depression. And I had I know very few people that had kind of bipolar disorder as well. but in my experience, the most common, and I think it's the same, across the world, it's the depression and anxiety that gets people the most. I think a lot of people don't quite realize that they have depression. I think sometimes they kind of palm it off as, I'm just having a really bad few weeks that turn into a few months. So they don't really focus on it. But I think that's definitely the most common thing that I've experienced myself and that I've seen around me in my circle.
Absolutely. Now, how about personally?
Personally, it was depression, clinical depression. It started off as anxiety when I was studying in college, or as I say, university. And it was pretty intense. I went to a point of where I think anxiety led to loss of sleep, and when you don't sleep enough mentally, that can really, really mess you up. And I ended up getting really fried. It was really bad. You lose your appetite, you feel it mentally as well as physically. And you can see it as well. You could see that I was suffering. Then after that, I was fine. And then the past couple of years was when I started suffering from depression. But me being so science-based, I was like, okay, it feels like I'm having a serotonin imbalance. How do I fix this? I have to make myself happy. But being involved with the book, having friends like Jamie talking me through it, who had previously experienced the same kind of stuff, it really got me through the whole time. And that's why I was so keen on us doing the book, because I thought, if my friends can help me through it, imagine how the world could be helped by reading other people's stories that they could relate to.
I love it. Thank you for being honest with your sharing of that story, because that's going to help so many people listening. Now you, please.
So I really resonate with so much of what Raessa says, and that's probably why we enjoy working with each other so much, because we're just on the same page with it all. But the other thing I feel like for me, it wasn't just one thing, it was a combination. So for example, you take the burnout, you take the immense pressure you put on yourself, you put the self-sabotage on yourself, you put the anxiety in, you put the depression in, you put the insomnia in, and you end up with this cocktail. And I'm not sure how you label that cocktail, but I know that a lot of people suffer from it. And after I suffered, I started to notice it in other people. So I remember being in my office once in my old job, and I remember just looking at some of the girls my age, and I thought, hang on a second, I know that you're having a panic attack. I can see it, it wouldn't be something I'd noticed before, but it's something that I noticed because I'm like, well, I did that. I know that. And I think it's far more common. And I think, like Raessa said, people don't want to label it as depression just yet, because it's just a bad week or a bad day. And I do think it becomes a cocktail, because you end up in this circle where you feel really kind of down, and then you push yourself harder because you think it's your own fault, and then you end up with burnout, and the cycle continues. So I really think that it's a real cocktail of things, and I think we've got to notice and take steps to kind of correct each thing in the cocktail.
I love that answer as well. I think preventative ways when you first start realizing it, or ways to, we'll get into that though in the later of the show. And I think it's interesting how you noted that, where they don't realize it's too late till depression. I find that side of the spectrum a lot. And also the reverse, where people just use the terms, I have anxiety, I'm depressed, really quick when they have one bad day and they go on. So conversations like ours that I think are going to balance that middle ground. But when did you first decide that either taking a stance on mental health advocacy or a career relating to mental health was the right path for you, Jamie?
Honestly, I can tell you the exact moment. I remember driving my car on the way to a yoga class, and I remember bursting into tears as I'm driving, which I don't recommend, by the way, because I realized that the life I was living then was the life that I would fantasize about 2 years ago. Not because it was an extraordinary life, but because I wasn't depressed anymore. And it was at that moment I realized, oh my God, I really wish I knew I wish I knew then how good my life could be. And I think that's when I decided that I wanted as many people I could find to feel the same, to feel like, listen, I don't know what you're thinking right now, but whatever you're thinking, I'm telling you, this is not the end. There is something out there. It can change. It will change. It will be different. And for me, that was the moment. So I could pinpoint it. I could tell you exactly which road I was driving down when I just burst into tears of joy that actually I was living the life I never thought I'd get to live. And what that meant was, not depressed. So yeah, I think that was my moment.
Well, yeah, it's crazy how when you strive for something for so long and it's finally here, you don't even recognize it sometimes because you're so used to still chasing it. But
Yeah.
Raessa, how are you?
Yeah, my one was actually the opposite. So I couldn't even pinpoint a moment, but Jamie always told me that from her experience, you know, when you are depressed, you think this is going to be the rest of my life. When is it going to end? Where's the light at the end of the tunnel? Where's the lemonade after the lemons? Hence our name. And it was constant. And luckily, I didn't suffer for too long. I think it was about a year, but she told me, and the line that I will always remember, she said, one day you're going to wake up and you're not going to feel like you felt the day before. Like you're actually going to feel fine and you might not realize it. And that's exactly what happened to me. I woke up, you know, I made my tea, I went to work, and then I stood there and I went, hang on a second, I don't feel awful. And then that day turned into 2 days, and then 3 days, and then 3 weeks, and then it's been good ever since. And yeah, I think that point for me, and then just having that kind of revelation really made me feel like I have to, just like my friends have helped me and Jamie has helped me, I really, really need to get this message out there. And I think the book was the best way we could have done it. And obviously through social media and everything, I think it's become such a major part of my life that, you know, I'm going to continue working in health care. I enjoy it, but I probably like more of a kind of focus on working in mental health more than the healthcare in the future, or just combine the two, really.
Well, I think a great way to put everything you both are saying, and something I like to say is, for every dark day, dark week, that just means a brighter one is ahead. You're dark now, it can only get better. And it's tough to see it's that way sometimes, but if you take it like that, it's only up from here. Well, we alluded to this question a little earlier, so I'm excited. What advice can you both give to our listeners as what may be considered potential early signs that they may be developing a mental illness? Raessa, please begin this conversation.
For me, the main things that made me realize, like, yeah, you're gonna feel a bit uneasy, but my main points were I wasn't enjoying things that I would usually enjoy. So I could be with the most amazing people, or be with my friend circle. I can, you know, I love food, so I could be cooking or going to like restaurants and eating amazing meals. And food in my culture is huge. So it sounds silly, but I would have an amazing meal in front of me and I would eat it. And that satisfaction you get, you know, you enjoy it. And
Right.
I wasn't doing that. And I thought, oh my God, if I'm not enjoying a meal, there must be something wrong with me. Like, so that was one major thing. I think textbook is not wanting to get out of bed to just start your day. Some people lose sleep when they're depressed. You get a lot of insomnia, but sometimes you sleep too much. Right. And you just don't want to be proactive. And also just with my personal relationships, I felt hard to, I'm usually, you know, I see myself as quite a giving person. I like to put other people first. And I felt hard to give I found it difficult to give my energy to other people. And that got to me as well, because I'm, you know, I'm very social and I like being around people. So those were the main points for me, that I knew that I was developing something that wasn't just being stressed or having a bad day.
Thank you again for your honesty. And it's like you said before, you started sharing your story more and more. Once you realize it helps one person, you realize it can start helping more and more. So thank you both again. Jamie, you.
So I can actually resonate with everything Raessa said. It was exactly the same. And the advice I'd give to people is, if I were to say you can feel something coming along for you, I'd say don't add more pressure. So one thing I did is, when I started to feel there was something going wrong, I instantly called myself lazy. I decided that I didn't want to get up because I was lazy, and I decided that I had a bad attitude, and I put all these labels, blaming myself. So I'd say, just don't self-sabotage, don't label yourself something that it's not the case. Take the pressure off and go and seek help, go and speak to people. And I think when you start having conversations and you realize other people have felt the same, it normalizes it for you, and it makes it feel like there's not something wrong with you. But I would say the big thing is just nip it in the bud quickly. Don't let it brew. So go and do the work. And I will say that, do the work, in the sense of, that means go and find the people who've dealt with this before. Go and find the experts. Read the material. Be kind to yourself. All of that is the work. So I'd say to people, start doing the work as early as you can.
Another great answer, Jamie. But speaking of doing the work, Pick 3 pieces of work, and I say just 3 because I want the 3 most important things our listeners can do on a daily or short-term basis to improve their mental health. You gave a couple of previews maybe, but we need your top 3. What do you have for us?
Oh, top 3. So number 1 is dial back the pressure. I've said that before and I'll say it again. Dial back the pressure. So as you're sitting there, calm yourself down. Do what you can do to be calm. And, meditation doesn't work for everyone. I know some people swear by it. I can't meditate. I'm terrible. But do things that calm you down. For me, hot bubble bath, take a walk in nature, do something relaxing. The second thing I'd say as a top tip is get into some personal development. So personal development for me helped me solve my depression big time. So I'd definitely say that. And the third thing I would say is start practicing kindness, because it's these times you're probably not going to be very kind to yourself. So I'd say do the opposite. A friend of mine actually gave me an amazing tip the other day. She said to me, how many times do you write down the compliments you receive? And I said, I've never done that. She's like, well, I've started doing it because there's a song by Baz Luhrmann which says, write down compliments you receive and forget the insults. And so she said she's been doing that. And this is something I said I'm going to start doing too. Every time I receive a compliment, write it down. Because what she said was when she's feeling rushed, she brings out this notebook, opens it up, and she said she reads all these wonderful things people have said about her.
Wow.
And she feels amazing. And so that's one thing that I'm going to start doing because the results I've heard are fantastic.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Raessa. I mean, those are great. I'm excited to
I
see
know.
what we have here.
I need to do that compliment thing. That sounds amazing. For me, I'm a bookworm, so reading books like self-development books really, really help me. I think sometimes it can get overwhelming with all the information out there, but once you kind of pinpoint what you're looking for, finding the right books and the right authors really helps. So that's kind of what got me started into self-development. I read the cliche ones. I read The Secret, I'm reading The Magic, or I read a lot of Tony Robbins stuff, and or even stuff like The Alchemist. So I read a lot, and I felt that the ones that I resonated with, I kept reading more books in that kind of category. I just wrote down, I tend to treat my books, a lot of people are very kind of particular, but with my books, I treat them like they're my sketch pad. So I'll highlight stuff that really resonates with me. I'll fold the pages, I'll make marks in it, so I could go over it again and again and again until they're worn. So that was really good for me. That's what got me started. Therapy was a life changer. Once you find a good therapist, that's all you need. I've got an amazing one. I referred her to a lot of my friends, Jamie included. She was awesome. She got me through a lot, and I think it's really important to find one that you can relate to. So I'm not one that takes a really nice therapist that kind of is like, everything's going to be okay. I need someone who's stern with me, because I listen to stern and quite harsh. So she was amazing. She got me through most of my dark times. And just surrounding yourself with good people. I think with age, I found that I don't have time or energy for toxic people anymore. So if I meet someone and they're not vibing with me, I'm not rude. I'm not a rude person, but I'll keep them at an arm's length. I don't need to add anyone to my circle. It's all about quality when it comes to friends, not quantity. So I'm not picky, but I'm very aware now of what kind of stuff I need to deal with, and toxic people is not something I need to deal with anymore. So I think those were the 3 major things for me that helped me through it.
I think you definitely followed up her 3 with an amazing 3. So you gave our listeners 6 great techniques there. Everybody listening, those are very quick, tangible methods you can do right away to improve your mental health. But now we're going to delve a little deeper here. And we just spoke about some short-term initiatives that you can create a more positive mental headspace with. Now, what are 2 longer-term commitments our listeners can make? Raessa, please start.
For myself, which hopefully will help other people, I had to learn how to be selfish, which sounds weird because you'll be told all your life not to be a selfish person. Right. I think a lot of people that suffer from mental health issues don't tend to they don't tend to be selfish because they want to they're people pleasers, and that I've seen that pattern. And I was exactly like that. I didn't focus on myself enough. Like Jamie was talking about self-love and self-care. I wasn't doing that at all. And everything that I had was for other people. Everything I did was for other people, whether it was I chose a career that would please my parents, or, you know, I chose like the way I lived was for other members of my family or my friends. And I think my major kind of step that I took was, and my therapist told me to do this. She's like, learn how to be selfish in like very small ways, and then you'll learn how to kind of take care of yourself in the long term. So I wasn't doing awful things, but she said, one example, she said, if someone asked you for a pen at work, what would you do? And I was like, I would give them my pen, obviously. She goes, say no to them. And I was like, why? Why would I say no to giving someone my pen? And she goes, if you can say no to that one thing and not feel so guilty about it, then you can learn to be selfish in small ways. You can learn to say no to things. Like if people keep asking you for favors, or if people keep asking you to, you know, listen to all their problems, sometimes you have to say no. So that was one of my main long-term things that I had to do that made a difference. And it gives you a bit of confidence as well. And you see at the end of it, people don't actually mind if you say no. So just ask someone else.
I'm someone who believes in just being transparent, honest, instead of, you know, we live in a world where everybody yeses everybody to death, and which is nice to be friendly and kind, but it's also not nice to waste somebody's time. So I'm right there with you on that. Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I'm blown away by that. I'm going to use that pen thing because that was eye-opening to me. So thank you, Raessa. So my two are a little bit more dramatic. I think that's just who I am as a person. So my first one is, I'd say long-term, you have to make a vow. So when I was struggling with depression, I would say the beginning and frankly, the hardest parts, I seemed to think that I could give up. There wasn't enough fight in me and I was just miserable and I was low and I wanted to give up. I had no get up and go, no fight. I didn't have any fight. The tank was empty. And that went on for a good 18 months. And I remember I was standing in my kitchen, I was buttering toast, and I stopped and realized, if I don't fight, this doesn't change. And I realized that I had to make a vow to try and fix this. And I decided that every time I thought to myself, I can't do this, I want to give up, I would say to myself, no, you made a commitment. You vowed to yourself you were going to end this. And so that's my first thing, make a vow. And it's funny because I told you about the driving to yoga. I've now told you about making the toast, but when you have those really poignant thoughts, you can remember exactly where you are, what
Absolutely.
you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I could probably tell you what time of day it is because that was when it changed for me. Everything was the same until that point when I realized this doesn't change unless I do. And so I made a vow to change. And my second point feeds into the first one, which is have some patience for yourself. Take it one day at a time and appreciate that. Look, on your journey to recovery, there will be days where you're doing really well and then you will fall off a cliff. And it feels at that point when you're in there, oh God, it's over. I couldn't do it. I couldn't succeed. And it's not that at all. It's just, unfortunately, the path to recovery often is 5 steps forward, 3 back, 5 forward, 3 back. But the point is, and you don't see it till it's over, that whole time you're taking 2-step leaps. You don't see the mini leaps you're taking the whole time. And so my point is, have some patience, accept that it's not going to be a nice straight trajectory to the finish line. You're going to fall down. It's going to hurt. You're going to get back up and you're going to keep fighting. And that's what I would say is a long-term strategy.
I mean, you guys are delivering tremendous value on this episode. These answers are absolutely great. Let's look into the future right here. What are some ways we're going to plan to raise awareness for the importance of mental health in the future? Jamie, you could start.
Book number 2.
All right, let's talk about it.
This whole book was the whole point of book number 1, which I've got here and I'm waving in front of you right now, was to do that. It was to raise mental health awareness. And the response to it has been unbelievable. We were scared to put this out there. We were scared that, our friends, family, co-workers would read it and think, oh, that's a lot, like that's a lot of feelings. And instead, the response has been phenomenal. So for us, our way to plan awareness is to just to keep it going, to keep telling people stories, to keep normalizing it, and to make people realize that they're not alone and there's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, congratulations, girls, again. Do you have anything to add, Raessa?
Yeah, like Jamie said, getting the book out there, it changed the pattern. People were opening up about their mental health problems, which never would have happened before if we didn't kind of open up about this book, tell people our stories. The work that you're doing, like doing these podcasts and making it so accessible. That's what people need. You know, a few years ago when I started suffering, like I didn't know that there were podcasts out there or like things like this out there that could help me. So, and it's literally, you press a button on your phone, you stick your headphones on, you listen to it on your commute to work. Like it's that easy. So I think just, we got to keep on doing what we're doing. You know, lockdown happened, pandemic's happening, and everyone, I think the whole world was in the same position for the first time. And we all really put our energy into building this amazing online community for everyone to help each other out. And I think if we stay on that path, then there won't be a stigma attached to mental health issues anymore. It would be super normalized, and it would be like, you could talk about this in everyday conversation, and that's the change we want to make.
All right, so another great answer. Girls, you're doing so much great work, so thank you. Right back at you. I think it is a great time to get into the spotlight story, girls. On each episode, I share a mental health story of someone who is famous because I want to let you, the listeners, know you are not alone. I want you to understand that even though someone looks like they're healthy from the outside, they may not be on the inside too. For today's episode, I will now introduce the mental health related story of an influencer many know as she became a UFC champion in Ronda Rousey. She is a former UFC champion and didn't suffer her first loss until November 2015. She even went into the World Wrestling Federation, or now WWE, for a little bit, but she's continued her brand. She's appeared on the Ellen DeGeneres show and admitted to contemplating suicide after the emotional aftermath of that first loss I described. She had previously been undefeated. This moment was considered to be extremely empowering for people who were afraid to open up about their mental health disparities. She has now continued to speak on mental health several times, and she also discussed issues such as her father's suicide and body dysmorphia. She also donates and promotes to organizations that support people with eating disorders and suicidal thoughts, which I think is amazing. But girls, what do you take away from this story or public statements on mental health?
So first of all, I love that the woman you're talking about was actually quite successful. She's a UFC champion. And the reason I love that is because when I struggled with mental health, I thought that I was a failure. I thought that it meant that my whole life was a failing because I was struggling with mental health. And what you've just highlighted there is it's not as black and white as that. You can be someone who's successful and have a really great life and still be struggling. And it doesn't mean you have failed in some way. It just means you're struggling with your mental health. And I think we add way too much meaning to whether it makes us a success or a failure.
Absolutely. Raessa?
Yeah, I think we say a lot to a lot of people that ask us about the book. Our main line is that mental health problems, depression, anxiety, it doesn't discriminate. It literally, as Jamie said, you can have the perfect life, the perfect job. You can be a successful athlete. It does not matter. It does not matter. Like, it doesn't mean you won't get any of these kind of mental health issues. And I think that's how me and Jamie connected the most when we first met, because both of our lives were fairly stable. And I felt like I didn't have the right to complain because I didn't come from a rough childhood. I had a good job. I was successful. And I think I kept my depression, anxiety quiet because I felt like I didn't have the right to complain. So for someone like Rhonda to open up about it, I think is a massive conversation starter. And that's the kind of movement we need with mental health.
And you hit some great points there, both of you, especially where it doesn't matter which kind of lifestyle you're living, what your past was or your future will be. Everybody battles different things every single day, and you don't really know about those things unless you're that person. So it's very important to always be kind. And I think I speak on behalf of all the listeners. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know we're going to see all the value in your episode every time we play it back. I loved how you both brought both different sides of the spectrum here. Even in the beginning, you knew your exact moment. You didn't. It seems like it's a real perfect team over here. I'm excited for now book number 2. And I also think we should do a book swap. We should mail each other a signed book of each other. My new mental health book came out, so we'll get to that after the show. But it is time for the last word. And I also do this in my other podcast series, what it's really like to be an entrepreneur too, because I want the listeners to really get to know the guests I bring on. Is there something that you would like to share with everybody that we didn't touch on yet? Raessa, please begin.
I think just everyone just make a massive effort to be a part of a community that relate to. Having our online Instagram community, you know, I wasn't a massive Instagrammer before, but everyone that follows us, the fact that we follow you on Instagram, it's just amazing to surround yourself with that daily. A lot of people are addicted to social media, but I think in a way it's okay as long as you pick the kind of posts that you see. So if you're constantly seeing positive kind of quotes and motivation quotes like that, I think if you fill your mind with that, I have no problems with it. And I think everyone should continue to do that, basically.
It's an excellent last word. Jamie?
So one of the things I learned in this project, which I wish I'd known before, so I want everybody else to know, is whatever you think people think about you, you've got it wrong. So when we were going to put this book out, as I mentioned earlier, I was dying of nervousness. I honestly thought like everyone's going to think I'm an absolute nutter for doing this. Whatever reputation I've built up in my career is going to be destroyed because suddenly I'm the one with too many feelings. And I got that so wrong. So my point is, whatever you think people think of you, it's probably not that at all. And so don't worry about it and don't let that get in your way and stop you, because that's what we typically do. We typically put people's thoughts and opinions of us so high up on our priority list that we stop doing what we need to do. And frankly, it was all made up in our head in the first place. They didn't think that at all. So I've learned that big time.
Well, that's outstanding advice. And that is, unfortunately, with the taboo part of mental health, still with the professional career. Will it ruin it? Will it not? So thank you for saying that. Would you guys please share your professional social media, the website, ways to get the book, all that, so people can look into you guys?
Yeah, so we're on where'smylemonade.com and all our information is on there. Our book is on sale on Amazon, and like we said, every single penny goes to the Mental Health Foundation. And our Instagram handle is where'smylemonade_. So you could follow us on there, and then both our personal profiles are on there as well.
Be sure to check out their great book and all of their valuable content. And it is social media time for the show, and we're on whichever platform you like to use. On LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, we're at A Mental Health Break. And on Twitter, we're at Podcasts by Lanci. So you have updates from this show and what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. Of course, my handles are at Vincent A. Lanci on all social media and YouTube. And my website is vincentalanci.com. If you check out any of my books, DM me. I would love to hear from you. We have Mr. Lanci Talks Mental Health, Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption, and How to Transform Your Mindset When the Norm is Changed. All are on my website now. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate the show 5 stars and continue listening by subscribing. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all on the next episode of A Mental Health Break.